Claudine Gay is gone, but the media and race-hustling liberals are doubling down to defend the poster child of DEI. Gay stepping down as president of Harvard after 50 examples of plagiarism emerged and her embarrassing congressional testimony on anti-Semitism. Harvard has expelled loads of students for the academic crime of plagiarism, but not if you're copycat Claudine. She is set to keep her nearly $1 million annual salary. She also has an army of sympathetic liberal journalists crying racism and blaming conservatives for her resignation. Check out these headlines. How the right toppled Harvard's president. Harvard president's resignation highlights new conservative weapon against colleges, plagiarism. And conservatives see Claudine Gay's resignation as a victory. And, of course, liberal pundits are going to bat for Gay. Listen.
What happened to Claudine Gay was mob pressure.
There is this sort of open war on Black progress, Black history. Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard University, at least up until she resigned, is now the latest casualty of that.
There very much is a racial component.
I don't think it's fair to say all of her critics were racist, but certainly a few of them were.
It looks as though she was targeted.
The fact that she's a Black woman and the first person who is a Black American to lead Harvard only added to their thirst to dethrone her.
$300 million. But what all these race hustlers fail to mention is that the white UPenn president was the first Ivy League head to roll. And the other white lady, MIT President Sally Kornbluth, is fearing for her job. She just sent an email to students outlining steps the school's taking to understand the nature and extent of anti-Semitism on campus. Okay, Greg Gutfeld, did you expect this reaction? They are now defending plagiarism.
Of course. I mean, Gay led this. I mean, I love how she refused to defend Jews, and then she cries racism. Yep. That's identity jujitsu, emphasis on Jew. But it's great to see, like, if you saw AP is getting barbecued for framing this as, you know, conservatives pouncing, or it's like they've weaponized plagiarism, which is actually, what does that mean? Weaponizing something bad? Does that mean getting rid of it? I don't really know. I'm all for weaponizing crime and corruption, too, if that's what it is. But the great thing about AP is it got totally eviscerated because of community notes on X, which then just printed the litany of her infractions. But you know who's a threat to diversity? People claiming that this firing is a threat to diversity, because no one in their right minds who runs a business will hire a person under the assumption that they can never fire them. Mm-hmm. And this is the message. No one's going to hire you. No one's going to hire you, a minority, if they think they can't fire you if you suck. So there's this unconscious reluctance to hire a person of color because back in your head, and it could be the boss that's a person of color, are thinking, well, will this be trouble down the line? Like, what if this person doesn't work out? Discrimination, obviously illegal, but you would be a fool not to think in this climate where discrimination lawsuits are incentivized and met with large settlements, that an angry fired employee, AKA Gay, who actually resigned, will accuse you of racism once you decide to pull the trigger. So that's something, you see this now, you even see this in like small businesses that are run by whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, you know, that like when they hear these stories, they go, you know what, we're going to stick to our group because you know what, we don't want to put we as a precaution, you know, we're observing reality, you know, victimhood is profitable. So we don't want to step out and hire somebody else because that could come back and blow up in our face.
Did you hear any evidence that the people that were asking for Gay's resignation were racially motivated?
No, but it's interesting. I love the point about, she was saying, like, how hard it was to be targeted with racial animus. It was like, well, but that was the question that Elise Stefanik asked at the hearing, which was, is calling for the elimination of the Jews something that's against the code of conduct, and she couldn't say yes. So then you have the push on plagiarism. What's interesting is that the New York Times is the one who's then started asking Harvard, why aren't you responding to the Washington Free Beacon inquiries? It's curious that the AP journalists would not be worried about plagiarism. I mean, they write for a living, and soon the robots are going to write for a living, and no one's going to be able to do anything about the plagiarism from the robots when that happens.
Are they allowed to plagiarize the robots?
Well, the robots are going to plagiarize everybody else. Who's going to police that?
Yeah.
Well, the Free Beacon.
Yeah, and thankfully so. One of my favorite reactions was from a liberal on Twitter who said, well, let's just start digging into the scholarly records and academic writings of conservatives. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's go for it.
Who hasn't done that already?
Yes.
They've done that already.
Yes.
You might learn something while reading.
The one thing is also, the question is then I think the bigger question, how was Gay chosen in the first place? How will they undertake the next search? What are they looking for? What does Harvard want? And the pain for Harvard is not going to stop until they're honest about their situation and very clear about what sort of rigorous scholarly standards that they want to uphold. And if they don't do that, then it can just become like any other state school.
Does Harvard now have to hire an African-American woman as a replacement? Because a lot of people are calling on Harvard to do that.
I don't think so. I think that they should hire whoever makes the most sense for the school and certainly take into account what has happened over the course of the last month and where they want to go in the future. And I think that's what they will do. And it doesn't mean if they do hire a Black woman or another person of a diverse background that it's a pity hire of some kind or a DEI hire. There are plenty of very well-qualified people to do this job. And you are right, they have in the past dug into the backgrounds of conservative scholars. We know, for instance, Neil Gorsuch plagiarized portions of his 2006 book. He took from a 1984 Indiana Law Journal article, and he said it wasn't malicious. He said this was a citation mistake. And I saw people were exploding about this online. Shouldn't this be what we're focusing on? And there is a key difference if you are leading the top, or certainly one of the top, but the top academic institution in the world, and your background is in that versus having done what Justice Gorsuch did. And I wish that he hadn't, but it's the reality of the situation. Plagiarism as a weapon, which was the terminology that the AP had used, plagiarism or doing credible work is the holy grail of academia. It is the thing that you pride yourself on. It is the thing that gets you remembered, the thing that your students love about you. I think that kind of terminology is so strange and off base. And Bill Ackman, who was obviously seminal in this happening, published, I think it was like 4,000 words, a screed about how he ended up becoming part of this and retraced his steps, saying, I showed up on October 8th, right, the day after this, before there was any organization on any level. And what was particularly disturbing to him was that he was confronted with this paradigm, which Greg talks about a lot, between the oppressor and the oppressed, and that people can only think in the, what do you call it, the prison of
The prison of two
ideas,
ideas, Jessica.
Right.
Read my last book.
I actually did.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, it was great. The part that I found most interesting about Ackman's letter was when he talks about DEI, and I think that we need to be careful in bucketing it as just one thing and saying, like, this is about hiring unqualified Black women. That's not what DEI is about. There's the side of DEI, which is about focusing on ensuring that people get a chance to rise up and get roles that they have been systemically discriminated against in the past. And then the people who actually get those roles who are people of color. And the truth is most DEI officers, like 76% of DEI chief diversity officers are white.
Yeah, with green hair.
Not with green hair.
Well, with green hair, that was statistically accurate. You can go check.
It was definitely not.
Judge?
Okay. First of all, one citation or miscitation by Justice Gorsuch doesn't compare to 50 credible claims of plagiarism by a woman who did not have the background, the intelligence, or the academic support to be the president of the most sophisticated and the most sought-after university in the country. There's no comparison between the two. Number two, is the fact that DEI is about equality of outcome, not opportunity. I think that equality of outcome is great, but when you're talking about someone who's going to lead the university, it doesn't work. And the fact is that this Sally Kornbluth from MIT, today she wrote a memo to her students, and this woman gets it. She said, you know what? I must not have understood how serious this was or how bad it was for Jewish students on campus. She shows how easy it is to keep your job. All she had to do was recognize that Jewish students are being intimidated on campus, and you can't allow it. Claudine Gay, in her letter where she resigned, doesn't apologize for anything, only talks about herself. It's me, me, me. Now, Claudine Gay only has herself to blame. She didn't have the academic excellence. She didn't have the integrity or the moral core to say the calling for the destruction of any group is against the code of conduct of Harvard. She didn't have that minuscule intelligence that she needed. And what the left is saying by saying this is all about racism, they can't figure out who the victims are. In the criminal justice system, the victims are not the people who've been victimized, it's the criminal. With Hamas, the people who've been victimized are Hamas, the terror organization, not the other people. And the same with Claudine Gay. She's a victim because she's black, not the Jewish students who are invisible to these people. So in the end, she could very easily have resolved this. And Bill Ackman is right. He's right. That board has to go. They threatened a defamation lawsuit to a New York newspaper, I think it was the Post, because they wanted to write about the defamation of Claudine Gay, and they didn't want it to come out. And they said that 50 instances of plagiarism, it was not intentional. It wasn't even reckless. It was not misconduct. While kids at Harvard, and they're having their worst day, they're getting thrown out of Harvard with a permanent mark on their record if they plagiarize. So, you know, and also, last thing on the board, they sought retribution against the whistleblower who told the press about the plagiarism. So Ackman is right. This Claudine Gay, she deserved to go, and that's the end of it. It had nothing to do with race. You can ask Liz McGill.
But he does want the MIT woman to go.
Well, she's not going. You know why? I don't know. He wrote that before she wrote this, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Really good contributions from all of you. And I really mean that.
Except for you.
I know.
Yeah.
Insane liberal policies forcing Democrats to sound like Republicans.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.